Good morning and welcome to GFBC Insights, a special segment brought to you by the Ghana France Business Club to create a dialogue around ongoing economic trends and potential opportunities in investment, finance, and the Ghanaian economy. So today we have the pleasure of interviewing Mr. Solomon Asamoah, CEO of the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, GIF. Mr. Asamoah has had extensive experience with over 25 years in the investment industry and has led over 4 billion in transactions across the African continent. In his role as CEO of GIF, he oversees origination, structuring, and investment into infrastructure-related projects across Ghana. Prior to this role, he held a number of notable positions, including Vice President for Infrastructure, Private Sector and Regional Integration at the African Development Bank, Deputy CEO and Chief Investment Officer of the Africa Finance Corporation, Vice President for Private Sector and International Investments at the Development Bank of Southern Africa, and Special Assistant to the CEO of the International Finance Corporation and Managing Director of the World Bank in Washington, D.C. So he began his career as an investment banker in the City of London and has a master's degree in chemical engineering from Imperial College. So welcome, Mr. Asamoah, and thank you very much for being here.
Pleasure. Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So for our audience, could you kindly give us an overview of the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund and its activities?
Yes, very much. And thank you again for the invitation. The Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund is a government of Ghana-owned investment vehicle with a very simple mandate, which is to promote and develop infrastructure projects within Ghana. The government took the initiative and established this investment vehicle and gave it $325 million of effective anchor equity, fully paid in. So we have a very strong balance sheet from day one. And as I said, our mandate is to develop and invest in infrastructure assets across Ghana. And we have been very busy, particularly in the last 3.5, 4 years. We now have a portfolio of over 14 investments in infrastructure across Ghana, and they focus on about 7 different sectors. And we have a combination of equity investments and debt investments. And very importantly, for every $1 of gift money that we put in to an investment, we've managed to attract $10 of other people's money into those projects. So it's been an excellent return for the government in investment in the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund. And it's also showed investors that the government is willing to put its money where its mouth is and actually contribute and anchor investments. That makes it easier for other people to invest in those projects. Perhaps I'll give you a quick sample of some of the projects that we've done, so your listeners will get a good sense of the types of transactions we've done. If anybody's traveled to Ghana in the last couple of years, you'll know that we have a very new international terminal at the airport. That was Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund was part of the financing group for that. And we allowed a development finance tranche of 200 million to close, which we did with the African Development Bank and the Development Bank of Southern Africa. We've also been involved in the second port of Ghana, Takoradi Port. There's a major expansion there of about $300 million that we've driven and been a very big part of it. It's back a group of private sector Ghanaian individuals won the concession to operate the port or part of the port. And we've been structuring and working with them, and we've managed to attract so far over $250 million of outside money to join us in this particular investment. So again, that's been a good investment for Ghana. We've also been quite busy in the hospitality space. So we're busy developing what will be a major new 5-star hotel close to the airport in Airport City. And the difference with this, with just a normal hotel, is that this will be the first one that will be really catering for the extended stay market. And so as well as 200 rooms, it will have 150 fully furnished apartments. So people, because a lot of people come to Ghana and they stay longer than a week, but less than 6 months. Too long to stay in a hotel, too short to rent an apartment. and this will cater to that. So we've been fairly busy also in the telecom sector, laying over 1,000 kilometers of fiber across the western side of Ghana. This will make telecommunications cheaper and faster. As anybody who comes to Ghana knows, the challenge in this sector is really the high cost of bandwidth. Broadband connectivity is very expensive and you don't always get fast service. So by laying this fiber and providing the infrastructure, we'll be able to sell it and lease it to the telecom companies, and hopefully the prices and the prices will come down and the speeds will go up.
Okay.
So that's just a flavor. We've also done investments in the mining sector and also in the power sector as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Asamoah, for the presentation. So as you said, it's great to hear that the government is putting its money where its mouth is. You participated in one of our webinars last October on the theme Ghana Beyond Aid. So Ghana Beyond Aid, it's been trending, I think, since 2017. So in 2017, in a now viral video with our president, President Akufo-Addo, he actually unveiled, I would say probably unveiled the concept of Ghana Beyond Aid during a speech with President Emmanuel Macron. And I quote, he said, "To get a Ghana Beyond Aid, we will have to harness effectively our own resources and deploy them creatively and effectively for rapid economic and social transformation. So this will require hard work, enterprise, creativity, and a consistent fight against corruption in public life. It will also require that we break from a mentality of dependency and adopt a confident can-do spirit fueled by love for our dear country, Ghana. So we cannot subordinate the common good to build a prosperous nation for the selfish interests of a few." So Ghana Beyond Aid, as it's commonly known, is a strategic plan outlined by the Ghana government with the overarching goal of achieving structural economic transformation. So it's been 4 years now since the speech went viral, but the sentiment remains the same, that Ghana has the potential to go from donor darling to beyond aid. So there is a firm conviction that Ghana can make the transition from a lower middle income country to a nation that is not only self-reliant, but that will achieve structural economic transformation. So my first question to you, Mr. Asamoah, in your opinion, how will Ghana shift from the beyond aid narrative and make the eventual transition from dependence on DFIs and donor aid to relying wholly on national resources?
Thank you very much. And like every Ghanaian, I think I felt a sense of pride when our president led with this narrative. And I think it's extremely important that all of us try to make it happen. And in a way, GIF is actually, I would argue, a manifestation of that. We have a situation where most of the infrastructure investments that are required in a country like Ghana requires long-term financing, because as you can imagine, it takes 3 years maybe to build a power plant or a long period of time. So the financing used for that needs to be long-term money. But unfortunately, in the domestic financial markets of Ghana, they're not as strong as we would like them to be. And so there's only short-term money often available, which means that when we want to do infrastructure, we have to rely on overseas funds. The idea of the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund is to actually participate as an equal member in these transactions, because we have the ability, A, to provide long-term funding ourselves. We also have the ability to take anchor equity positions. So the ownership, there is a Ghanaian ownership element to the projects that we do. And that means that when we're negotiating the terms, when we're talking to investors and financiers to come and join us in these projects, they know that we have skin in the game. They know that we are committed. And they also know that we have written out checks to be an equal partner in these projects. And that changes the dynamic. That changes the terms that Ghana can achieve on its financing. And quite frankly, it also encourages the foreign investors that the Ghanaians themselves have skin in the game and are willing to be committed. The only additional point that we have to do, and we've emphasized that as a Ghanaian institution, is that there are international rules for financing. we have to make sure that our projects comply with those rules, or else we will not be able to attract the financing. So a strong government-owned investment vehicle that operates like a commercial, with the commercial discipline of a private sector company, is an incredibly important institution to move towards self-reliance and equal partnership in projects. And that is the basis behind what the president's word is moving beyond aid, moving from dependency to partnership, from aid to trade and investment. And I think we ourselves have shown that. We've invested over $300 million of Ghanaian money into infrastructure investments and managed to attract 10 times that amount, $3 billion into investments into Ghana. And so we believe GIF itself actually is a manifestation of the move that our president wants the country to go into. I would just say one further thing about moving beyond aid. A country has to take advantage of its natural resources for the benefit of its people, first and foremost. Ghana is very fortunate in that we have very good natural resources. Everybody knows about the gold, the cocoa, etc. in Ghana, commodities. What we have to do to really create wealth in the country is move beyond just exporting the raw materials to other parts of the country, the world, which then add the value. If you really want to move to the next level, and all countries and histories around the world demonstrate this, you have to harness what you have and try and create as much value for your people at home. Let me give you an example. In the gold mining sector, for example, there was one particular mine which we looked at, which had about $10 billion worth of gold in the ground of value at today's gold prices.
Okay.
It was probably $10 billion worth of value. That gold mine, if it was owned by a Ghanaian institution, would be able to raise the financing, the debt financing needed to construct the mine. But once the mine has been constructed, you can imagine what generating $10 billion worth of cash flows would look like over the next, say, 5 to 10 years. If we own that mine, we would be able to get that wealth and then translate it and move it to financing maybe lots of our infrastructure that we need ourselves, our roads. Maybe we could use it to finance our health sector or our education sector. That would be transferring the gold, adding value within Ghana, and creating that wealth and transferring it to the reserves of Ghana. That is how you move up the chain. So taking advantage of your natural resources and adding value to it at home as much as possible. We are fortunate we have oil now, we have gas. As I mentioned, we have gold, we have cocoa, we have many minerals as well. Harnessing those, adding value is the way that you move beyond aid.
Great. Actually, I just wanted to touch on the last thing that you said. This is concerning development partnerships. There has been some misconception surrounding the Ghana Beyond Aid vision. Of course, it was quite shocking for most people when they saw the viral video, but of course, it was taken somewhat out of context. It's seen, or should I say misinterpreted, as a radical rejection of foreign aid, and it's seen as isolating Ghana from development partnerships as opposed to gradually building capacity. So we took a quick look at the Ghana Beyond Aid Charter, and in terms of financing the Ghana Beyond Aid initiative, the objectives are outlined as providing assured financing of Ghana's transformation agenda and efficiently accessing donor resources and ensuring their alignment with Ghana's priorities. So in this regard, how does a sovereign wealth fund such as GIF fit into the Ghana Beyond Aid vision? Could you kindly, you've already mentioned this, but could you kindly elaborate further?
Sure. And I'm actually very happy that you put this issue on the table so I can address it directly, because there has been a lot of misconceptions about Beyond Aid and a lot of misrepresentation of what our president was conveying. Going beyond aid does not mean going alone. It doesn't mean rejecting or turning our back on all of our partners, development partners, and countries that have worked with Ghana. It does not mean that at all. It means developing the relationship and moving the relationship to a higher level. We recognize that we have a long way to go as a country in terms of development. But we want to move there with our partners, working closely with them, and them challenging us and we challenging them, and having an equal relationship that satisfies both sides and moves the country forward. So it does not mean going along. It does not mean rejection. It also does not mean turning our back on aid. There are clearly areas where, and for example, if you look at the social sectors, where the private sector will not play, where investors will not go, where we have to find a way to develop our people, not with the private sector, but through the public sector. Those are the areas where real aid is still very, very welcome and very, very much needed. But the point is that we have to move generally as a people to more self-reliance and more better execution of our own decisions that we make and our own investment strategy, and having a strategy that has equal partnership with investors, I think, is the way to move forward. The Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, as I mentioned earlier, is really demonstrating that we have excellent relationships with DFIs, with investors, with banks and financial institutions. They understand that transactions that we will be involved in will meet their standards and their criteria. And they're very, very welcome, very, very open to working with us to invest within Ghana, because Ghana is still a very attractive investment destination in Africa, but also on the global stage. We have clear laws. We respect the rule of law, and a lot of investors have made a lot of money coming to Ghana. So we think we have an attractive environment, and we think the partnership can work extremely well going forward.
Okay, thank you so much for the clarification. Actually, thank you for mentioning, you mentioned self-reliance and also adding value to our resources as opposed to simply exporting. So investment opportunities in sectors like infrastructure development, energy, manufacturing, and industry have been heavily promoted by the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, meaning that there's still progress to be made. And obviously these sectors are key to the Ghana Beyond Aid vision. So driving foreign direct investment to close the financing gap for infrastructure is one possible solution. But on a more domestic front, how can public sector actors such as GIF promote structural economic transformation and also accelerate infrastructural development?
Sure, thank you. I think the best way we can attract investors and investment is by doing things well ourselves. There's a natural interest in coming to Ghana and investing in Ghana. It's not a hard sell to get people to visit Ghana, and just about everybody who visits Ghana leaves with a positive impression of the country, the people, the friendliness, the safety. And so it's not a hard country to attract people to take a look in. However, the flip side of that is if they come and they meet challenges or disappointments that they didn't expect, in many respects, the letdown feeling is higher than for other countries. And so we have to make sure that we mean what we say, and we do what we say we're going to do when we're attracting investors into the country, and make sure that we follow the rules that everybody expects as a country. We've shown through the early investments that the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund has done in a relatively short time, I mentioned 3 to 4 years, 14 transactions, is that the appetite for foreign investors is there in Ghana. They are looking for the right assets for which they can place their funding. they're looking to invest in Ghana. They just want to see investments that are structured to international standards. Once we provide that, I am sure raising funding for projects in Ghana will not be the issue. It's not a lack of money, and it's also not a lack of appetite. So I'm sure that whenever I do a project and we structure it and we invite them to come in, there's no shortage of takers for the project. For example, there's a new area that we are looking at. There's a shortage of university accommodation for students across the country. Much more students than places to stay accommodation. We have identified a solution that can produce high quality hostels at not at higher prices than the students are paying at the moment. And we're working with the private sector to find this solution. We've had no shortage of potential financiers looking to play in this particular space because we're making sure that the structures meet their standards. And that is the same thing that we've seen in the infrastructure sectors and the other areas of investment that we've done. So I'm very confident that the future is looking bright as long as we can, as I said, maintain our own discipline.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your response, Mr. Asamoah. But I do agree with you. Ghana is not a hard sell. And actually, since 2019, it seems like we've been gaining more recognition internationally, seeing as we were nominated by the African Union in 2019 to become the host secretariat for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, the AFCA. So with the AFCA being implemented in 2020 and trading beginning in January of this year, this opens up the country to many opportunities. So how is GIF leveraging on Ghana's position as the host of the AFCA Secretariat to attract international, even continental private sector capital? Are there any strategies in place as trading begins in 2021?
Yes. Thank you, and I'm glad that you raised this because this is an extremely important development that's taking place. The Africa Free Trade Agreement will allow free movement of goods across borders within Africa, and trade is expected to increase proportionately. What that means is that for those businesses that can see opportunities to sell and to trade beyond their own borders, there's more of a level playing field than there was before, which means that the strong will survive and move forward as is life. So it's very important that Ghanaian companies prepare for this, be strong, and be able to take advantage of the opportunities that will arise. It also means that Ghanaians will have access to better priced products, both coming in, and it's important that our businesses also are ready to compete on those bases. I think having a secretariat headquartered in Ghana is a very important thing for Ghana. Number one, it's a recognition of the country, of the stability of the country, and its ability to attract such a position. I think that's important. Secondly, though, it gives us the opportunity to work closely with the secretariat and to work closely with our other African countries, and perhaps and be prepared. If we are prepared and ready to take advantage of this, then we can see Ghanaian companies moving across our borders, or making partnerships much more easier than they did before. So I think it's an important initiative. The future, though, and if I can just use this to bring in the pandemic for a second, one of the things that the COVID pandemic has really made Africa face is the fact that we rely too much on maybe some of the global supply chains, particularly coming out of Asia and other places. When those routes closed because of the pandemic, we suddenly realized how exposed we are. So it's very important that we create and develop new supply chains. Inter-Africa trade is clearly one of the areas that we should focus upon. And so that has taught us that we need to be prepared to change our supply routes and our supply chains. The second point that I would emphasize that the pandemic has shown us is that we need more resilience, self-resilience. When the rest of the world is not as keen to travel or to come here, we need to generate trade amongst ourselves within Africa as well. And so that's another area that we're going to focus on. But really, the other thing that's taught us is that the future of trade is going to be a lot more digital than necessarily a businesswoman or a businessman getting on a plane, flying to China, buying goods, bringing them back, and then selling them at home. Perhaps when people couldn't fly, they had to find other ways to purchase the goods. And digital platforms, I think, is going to be the way forward. And I think a lot more trade is going to be done digitally. And that's another area that we should be looking to take advantage of. And with the Secretariat in Ghana based here, we need to be working with them closely to see how we can take advantage of that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Asamoah. So, I mean, you've spoken extensively about Africa. I wanted to follow up. I mean, Ghana is also leveraging on its position as a secretariat. I can imagine that the attention that we are getting would be good publicity in terms of accelerating the promotion of Ghana as an ideal investment destination. So I can imagine that this will cause an emphasis on investment in anchor industries, and more specifically, manufacturing and industry. So a perennial complaint against investing in the sub-region generally has been the infrastructure deficit, which seems to be prevalent in the region. So at minimum, Ghana, as the host state of the Africa Secretariat, needs supporting infrastructure to promote not only the manufacturing base, but the market apparatus and network into the global supply chain. So are there any mechanisms being anticipated by GIF to close this infrastructure financing gap?
Yes, and that was really the reason why GIF was established, was trying to address these infrastructure deficits and gaps that appear. On a continent basis, the African Development Bank estimate that Africa needs $100 billion per year for 10 years to address the infrastructure deficits that exist around the continent. Ghana suffers from the same issues, which is if you want to develop a manufacturing base that can be competitive with other companies across the world, then you need to bring your power costs. Your cost of power need to be in line. You need to bring your road network up to speed so that the goods can be transported. You need to bring your ports up to the speed so that they are efficient and goods can go in and out. Same thing if we want to exploit our agriculture, if we want to exploit our minerals, the infrastructure to do that needs to be able to compete with the rest of the world. And that is an area that we've got a lot of work still to do. Now, the fortunate thing about that is that when you're starting from a low base, it often means an opportunity is there rather than a negative situation, because these infrastructure investments can actually themselves generate funds, generate money, and generate revenue and generate income. So there's a huge opportunity for investors willing to invest in these infrastructure spaces. And that is an area that we're trying to exploit as the Ghana Infrastructure Fund and Ghana generally. So we're doing a lot of work right now in our power sector to reform it and to make sure that it's competitive and it's of the right price. We're doing a lot of work with our ports. As I mentioned, it's very important that you have efficient ports. If we have very efficient ports in Ghana, you will find that large container ships will choose to come to Ghana and as their first stop, and maybe distribute other goods to other countries across the continent, particularly the landlocked countries to the north, through Ghana, if our ports are efficient and well run. And that is why we're investing in those particular areas. So our road network is getting a lot of attention as well. So these infrastructure deficits are really at the core of being able to exploit A, the resources, the natural resources that we have, and B, to be able to make our manufacturing base strong and robust and competitive with the rest of the world. And so that has been noticed, and it's getting a lot of attention from our government as well as the Ghana Infrastructure Fund.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Asamoah. Thank you also for highlighting the opportunity and also the willingness of investors to invest in these spaces. Actually, I wanted to just touch on our webinar that we had the last year in October, which was on the same theme, Ghana Beyond Aid. So during this webinar, we touched on attracting private sector capital, whether from domestic or international sources. But of course, with the time allotted, with the webinar, we couldn't go into too much detail. So I wanted to take the opportunity to delve further into the topic of alternative financial investment instruments. Attracting private sector capital, foreign investment, and also harnessing alternative financial instruments such as private debt, sovereign wealth funds, and pension funds could possibly be a solution to the infrastructure financing gap. So what are your thoughts as a sovereign wealth fund? Do you believe that alternative financial instruments could be a solution to unlocking more capital? And how is the government strengthening GIF's capacity to do so?
Okay, it's an excellent question. And I think it's very important that we recognize that there are large pools of money all around the world looking for an investment home, who are basically earning next to nothing, 0% sometimes, or even -% in some countries in the developed world. Show them a good investment opportunity that they can be comfortable with, and a lot of those funds will flow into our markets. So it's upon us to make sure that we put our structures together at a standard that meets their needs, the investors' needs. And that's something that we must never forget. The person writing the check needs to be comfortable that giving the money to you is a good investment in which they'll get their return. And you will do what you say you're going to do with the money that they give you. And so that's an extremely important component of this. But I would stress, as well as international sources of funding, I would also stress domestic sources of funding, which has also been, often been neglected. We have large pools of capital here at home in the pension funds or the insurance companies. And they also are struggling to find investment outlets that they can put their money. So they tend to buy just government bonds, paper, and real estate. So it's very important that infrastructure could be an investment outlet for them. Everywhere around the world, infrastructure investment is an asset class in itself, and it attracts pension funds and insurance companies because it's got the perfect profile for their investments. They can long-term, regular, steady cash flows is exactly what the pension funds would like to invest in. So the overall strategy of GIF is to create these infrastructure assets, build the power plant, invest in the port, get it to the stage where construction has finished and it's just generating regular, every month cash flows regularly, borrowing regular cash flows for the next 15 years, and then take those assets, package them, and we can sell them to the domestic pension funds, who will be happy to take them because they've been de-risked. The infrastructure has now been built and is generating cash flows. And we can recycle our money when we sell it to them. We can recycle the money that we get to create new infrastructure assets. So the ultimate aim of the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund is to create these assets, get them operating, and then package them and sell them to the pension and domestic investors, and international pension funds as well will be very interested in these assets, and then recycle the funding. I've lost count of the number of conversations I've had with international pension funds who are looking to allocate a small percentage in terms of their overall portfolio, but a big number in terms of Africa, to Africa. They would love to invest into Africa. They don't do direct investments necessarily, but they look for a portfolio approach. But we need to be able to, one of the first questions they ask is, well, is the local pension funds, are they also investing? Once we have a system where the local pension funds are investing, it's going to be much easier to attract the large international pension funds to also invest in our continent. So that's another source of funding that we haven't forgotten.
Okay. No, thank you so much for the clarification. That was actually going to be my next question. I mean, I know there are limitations for pension funds, for example, if they would like to invest elsewhere on the continent. You mentioned government bonds and real estate. So if they are trying to invest elsewhere on the continent and even domestically, how can, for example, the pensions, insurance, and security industries in Ghana be reformed to expand and invest on elsewhere on the continent?
Sure. I think it's a two-pronged approach. I think reform of their charter to allow them the flexibility to do that is only one component. The second, and I would argue the most important component, is to actually produce the assets that meet their criteria to invest. There's no point changing all the reforms, and then when they're ready, they can't find any assets that qualify to meet their threshold. And I want to emphasize something here. Construction risk, i.e. the building the actual infrastructure, is arguably the risk that they should not be taking as pension funds. And so it's left to other institutions like GIF and funders who can take that risk to build the assets. Once the asset is built and it's just producing regular cash flows, once the power plant is built and it's just receiving collections every month, then it's an ideal asset for the pension funds. So it's a two-stage process. I see. There's the funders who have higher risk tolerance who build the infrastructure, and then there's the pension funds who take out the initial financing later on. So I think it's very important that we do that. Once we do that, we will be able to take those assets and, if necessary, get a rating for them. Because one of the other criteria that pension funds have is that, as a regulated institution, there are regulations around what they can invest in, and rightly so, because they have our pension money. So we don't want them to go bankrupt before we reach retirement age. So there are regulations as to what they can invest in. We don't want them going to Las Vegas and then throwing all the money on the color. So we need to build the assets that meet that criteria, and I think it's something that will unlock a lot of funds for investing domestically in infrastructure assets in our own countries. And also, one step after that is to allow them to invest in infrastructure assets across Africa, qualifying assets, I would say. And the advantage of that is that it's a two-way street. If we can also then attract investments from across the continent, as long as the assets are well structured, we can do that. So I see it as a huge, exciting opportunity to be unlocked.
Okay, thank you very much. So, of course, there's still work to be done in terms of reforming the financial services industry. But I just wanted to touch on something that we came across in the Ghana Beyond Aid Charter. So apparently there's also the objective of opening up a national development bank in order to mobilize domestic long-term capital, specifically to accelerate industrialization and agricultural modernization, and will seek non-government equity participation from both domestic and foreign sources. So do you believe that easing the regulations for the domestic financial services industry will help unlock and mobilize private sector capital?
Absolutely. It's a very interesting and initiative. And I think development banks have had their issues in the past, and they've had their detractors. But hopefully we've learned from that. And the key thing that you learn if you're setting up a development bank is that you must find a way to operate it so that it's outside of direct political interference in terms of the individual investments that are made. Once you can have the right corporate governance structure so that it can be run efficiently and well, I think you have an institution that can do marvelous things in terms of development of the country. So the new development bank in Ghana is going to focus, as you rightly say, on key areas, industrialization and agribusiness, and really to be adding value at home for our agricultural sector produce. And I think that theme will do the country wonderful good. And I think the development bank, if it's structured correctly, has the right people running it, will be able to make a very positive impact in that area. And again, it's another sign of the government putting its money where its mouth is, and then attracting others to come and join them in a new venture. And I think that shows commitment from the government, which is one of the things that potential investors look for.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Asamoah, for the clarification. So, I mean, we would like to wrap up the interview. So just to summarize, of course, Ghana Beyond AIDS is a very ambitious undertaking, which will require public sector and also private sector resources, resource mobilization and management, financial sector reforms and opening up the capital markets and strengthening the capacity of local finance institutions to mobilize domestic and foreign long-term private capital are key to financing Ghana Beyond Aid. However, Ghana Beyond Aid will also require changes in mindset and attitudes, so we begin to do things differently, as clearly illustrated during this interview with Mr. Asamoah. So we would have to do things in a more smarter, more efficient and effective manner with a much higher sense of civic responsibility. So thank you very much, Mr. Asamoah. Is there anything you would like to add before we wrap up?
Just to thank you for the opportunity to have the interview. I've enjoyed the conversations. I think they're real issues for Ghana. But I would like the listeners to be left with a very positive outlook we feel in Ghana. We think the country is going to go leaps and bounds. Once we're over, obviously, the pandemic, we think we have the building blocks to really be one of the fastest growing countries on the continent and moving forward. So I think the future is bright. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Asamoah, for your perspective and your insight on the Ghana Beyond Aid initiative, financing Ghana Beyond Aid and alternative financial instruments. So we will have an upcoming follow-up interview with Belvedere Africa Partners for a more international and continental perspective of Ghana Beyond Aid. So for any more follow-up questions, please send us an email at contact@gfbc.club. And for more information on the Ghana France Business Club, please visit our website, www.gfbc.club. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.